Welcome to Match Pack, your weekly statistical guide ahead of a full weekend of Premier League action. 2 rounds of fixtures have been played since our last programme, increasing the overall tally to 140. Over a third of the games have been played, and we've seen 369 goals scored, Liverpool's Mohamed Salah leading the way with 12. As for hat-tricks, Wayne Rooney became the 4th player to achieve that feat, joining Chelsea's Alvaro Morata, Bournemouth's Callum Wilson and Manchester City's Sergio Aguero. While 2 penalties were saved during Everton's game with West Bromwich Albion, increasing the total to 6 this season.
Arsenal versus Manchester United. Arsene Wenger against Jose Mourinho. A true clash of Premier League titans. It took him a while, but in this fixture last season, Wenger finally got his first league victory over his rival. Goals from Granit Xhaka and Danny Welbeck sealing a 2-0 win for the Gunners. Overall, though, the head-to-head stats are well and truly in Mourinho's favour. The Portuguese has won 8 of the 17 clashes between the pair in all competitions. Wenger has just 2 wins, only 1 coming in the Premier League.
Well, the upper hand's definitely got to be Jose Mourinho, hasn't it? You know, he's only lost once to Arsene Wenger. You know, these are 2 huge clubs playing each other at the Emirates. And Manchester United, whenever they come to town, there's a lot of pressure on them to win games, as much as there is on Arsenal to win at home. So, it's going to be a great occasion, but the upper hand goes to Jose Mourinho.
If Mourinho's going to exact revenge for last season's Emirates defeat, United will have to be at their very best. Arsenal are currently on a 12-match winning streak at home, their best run since 13 straight victories at Highbury between February and November 2005. One man integral to Arsenal's recent resurgence is Aaron Ramsey. When he plays the full 90 minutes, the Welshman is averaging 12.2 kilometres this season, more than any of his teammates. He's also been involved in 8 goals, netting 3 times and registering 5 assists, a team high among Arsenal midfielders.
Ramsey has to supply the legs in midfield to go beyond the strikers. That's very important for this Arsenal team. Obviously, Mesut Ozil likes to get on the ball. A lot of the Arsenal players like to get on the ball. There ain't a lot of players in the midfield. Xhaka doesn't get beyond the ball, so that's left for Ramsey to do.
Despite their thrilling win against Watford, United's recent away results ahead of this fixture don't make for the prettiest of reading. Just 3 wins in their 7 games on the road, hardly form that aligns with their title ambitions. In Anthony Martial, though, they have a forward in red-hot form. The Frenchman has been used sparingly this season, starting just 6 league matches. However, he's been making the most of his time on the pitch with 6 goals and 2 assists, registering a goal involvement every 63.8 minutes, the most frequent in the division amongst players who've clocked up more than 300 minutes.
I think Anthony Martial's a very gifted player. Obviously, I think minutes have been shared around because they've got such a plethora of attacking players, Rashford, Lukaku, and now, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is coming back. So I think Martial's been good for Manchester United. Scored some very important goals coming off the bench. So I think Arsenal really have to keep their eye on him because he's a match winner on his own.
Another player really proving his worth to United is fellow French international Paul Pogba. When he features in a game this season, the Red Devils are averaging 3 goals with a win percentage of 85.7 as opposed to 57.1 when he doesn't play.
Manchester United play with a confidence and swagger when Paul Pogba's in the midfield. He's got so many tools in his box. He can run with the ball, he can play killer passes, he could spray the ball wide, and he can dig in as well in the centre of the midfield. And he's got that size where it's another threat from set piece or a corner. So, he adds up. He's a massive piece to the Manchester United jigsaw.
Arsenal are slowly but surely getting back to where they feel they belong. Their win against Burnley last weekend saw them back in the top 4, outside the embryonic month of August, for the first time since March. Manchester United present a totally different test to their past 2 fixtures, though. The Red Devils conceding just 8 goals all season, a league low. So will Wenger's Gunners have enough to breach Mourinho's defences?
Arsenal are in the ascendancy and Manchester United are playing some great football. But I'm going to go with the home team. I think Arsenal have got a point to prove again against Jose Mourinho and this Manchester United team. I'm going to go for Arsenal to win this game 2-1.
It's a week when Wayne Rooney rolled back the years for Everton. The forwards' goal tally for the season now 7 in 12 league appearances, 2 more than in 25 outings for Manchester United last term. His stunning third goal in the win over West Ham United came 2,272 days since his last treble, the longest a player's waited between hat-tricks in Premier League history. It was also just the second time this season the Toffees have kept a clean sheet, a welcome relief having already conceded 28 goals. And there's further cause for optimism going into the game against Huddersfield Town. Everton have lost only one of their last 20 Premier League clashes against promoted clubs. Huddersfield have their own defensive problems, especially away from home. They've let in 16 goals on their travels, and the victory they managed in their first ever Premier League away game at Crystal Palace on the opening day seems a distant memory. Since then, the Terriers have failed to score in any of their last 6 matches on the road, despite having 53 shots. That lack of cutting edge has certainly affected their form. The 2 top-flight victories that opened the campaign proved something of a false dawn, with Town winning just 2 of the following 12. The midweek 5-0 defeat at Arsenal was their heaviest yet, and meant that away from the John Smith Stadium, they've collected only 4 points from a possible 21.
A new man in control to deal with a challenging time for West Bromwich Albion. A late own goal in their draw with Newcastle United on Tuesday meant the Baggies are now 12 Premier League games without a win. Crystal Palace, meanwhile, also had to settle for a midweek draw against rivals Brighton and Hove Albion, their first clean sheet of the season, becoming the last of all 20 teams in the league to achieve a shutout. Alan Pardew's appointment at West Brom means he'll face the side he last managed in the competition before his dismissal in December 2016. His pedigree is encouraging for his new side, having previously managed 4 Premier League clubs.
I think you look at Alan Pardew's record wherever he's been, and he has an initial sort of factor of getting players to win games and performance over the long haul and the distance way sort of has problems, but I think he'll suit West Brom, and I think West Brom will suit him.
Despite Crystal Palace's position in the league, their recent form is looking up under Roy Hodgson. The London outfit took 5 points from a possible 9 in the last 3 games, an improvement on their previous 8 matches when they only managed 4 from 24. It was an historic day when these two last met in the Midlands. Wilfried Zaha's superb strike in the 55th minute put Palace ahead, before Andros Townsend's impressive solo effort doubled the scoreline, giving the South London side a much-needed win. The victory was their first top-flight triumph at the Hawthorns in 44 years, and the valuable 3 points contributed towards maintaining the Eagles' top-flight status.
With 5 wins from the last 6, there's plenty going to plan for Chelsea's Antonio Conte, even though he was sent to the stands in the latest victory over Swansea. In those 6 matches, the Blues have put together some good figures, scoring 12 and conceding just 3 times. Those results have placed Chelsea third, respectable enough, though still 5 points below last season's total at this stage. Their goal difference too is inferior, with the club 7 worse off overall. The root of that problem has been the decline in chances created and goals scored, both of which are down when compared to the same period 12 months ago. On the positive side, the goals have come from a wider range of players, which surely offers Conte some encouragement for the rest of the campaign. At the other end of the pitch, there's one player the Italian puts his faith in time and again. Cesar Azpilicueta's versatility has made him a mainstay at the back, playing in all but 1 Premier League game since Conte arrived as manager in 2016. It's not hard to see why. Azpilicueta sets the standard among his defensive colleagues, leading by example with his tackling, aerial ability and clearances. His reliability is a valuable asset.
Very important, very, very consistent player, and that's what you need as a manager. You need a player that you can rely on. You can put him in several different positions, and you can rely on him to give you a 9 out of 10, say, every week, and he's that player.
Potentially lining up in the opposing defence is Javier Manquillo. The Spaniard has featured in all but 2 league matches this season and is probably enjoying it more than the last campaign with relegated Sunderland. The team has a vastly superior win percentage, and his personal statistics suggest he's settled in well on Tyneside.
In this day and age now, a lot of defenders are talking about how they bring the ball out, how they play, how they distribute the ball, but not really necessarily talking about how they defend, and that is their main role, and he seems to thrive on defending.
One area where Newcastle as a whole are thriving is in the number of shots they're having on their travels. Only Manchester City and Tottenham have mustered up more than the Magpies' 103, a figure that puts them ahead of Liverpool and Arsenal. Sadly for Rafa Benitez and his players, that attacking intent hasn't brought an abundance of goals. Newcastle have found the net just 6 times on the road, the lowest among those 5 teams, winning just once. It's clear they need to become more clinical.
If they're not winning games, then it really doesn't matter about the shooting statistics. One thing I will say is that if you're not going to shoot, you're not going to score. So I'm guessing that the goals will suddenly start flying in if you carry on giving the statistics that they are.
In the last 4 fixtures between these two at Stamford Bridge, blue has most definitely been the colour to follow. Newcastle have suffered 4 consecutive defeats and only managed 1 goal in West London. Somehow Rafa must use that history as an incentive.
Records are there to be broken, and that's how I looked at things when I was playing, obviously. And all records are there to say, oh yeah, we're not going to win against them. But then you can go out there and prove people wrong, and that's all football is about, proving people wrong.
Newcastle's players will hope they can match the impact Papiss Cissé had when this pair met back in 2012. A phenomenal second goal went down as one of the best the Premier League's ever seen. That remains the only time Newcastle have won at Chelsea in the competition. This time around, it's 3rd against 12th. The Blues hot favourites on current form. The Magpies desperate to build on a spirited midweek draw and get back to winning ways.
Chelsea are a very strong side, so it's going to be a very difficult day for Newcastle. If they can, for the first 20 minutes keep everything solid, they've got half a chance and hitting them on the break. But to be honest with you, I see it going Chelsea's way, and I'm looking at probably a 3-1 score.
Manchester City retained their hefty lead at the top of the Premier League after securing a late 2-1 victory over Southampton on Wednesday. It increased their points tally to 40 from their first 14 games, extending their best start to a Premier League season. Meanwhile, David Moyes' wait for a first win in charge of West Ham United continues as his side were hammered at Goodison Park, leaving the East London side winless in 7 Premier League games. West Ham failed to register a shot on target until the 52nd minute against Everton. However, they do boast a better conversion rate against City. They've scored 3 from 15 shots at the Etihad since 2015-16 and will hope for more of the same this weekend.
I think it'll be very difficult. If you're asking David Moyes what he'd want out of the game, he'd want a performance and he'd certainly take a point. I think getting all 3 is a big ask. I think the form that City are in, they can smash anyone by 4 or 5. And also grind results out like they did at Huddersfield at the weekend. So I'm going to go for a home win, and it might be a big one for David Moyes and West Ham.
Raheem Sterling has been a big part of City's formidable attack. Following his 96th minute winner, he's equalled his best goal return in a season, scoring 9 in the league. In addition, the Englishman may be aware that his side have found the net in 18 of their last 20 league meetings against the London outfit, so he'll no doubt fancy his chances. The Hammers endured a 4-goal thumping when last these sides met at the London Stadium. Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva opened the scoring. However, the main headlines were scripted by Gabriel Jesus. The Brazilian became the first player to score and assist a goal in their first Premier League start for Manchester City.
Our match-pack question this week is all about perfect hat-tricks, those completed with the right foot, left foot and a header. We'd like to know who's scored the most in Premier League history. Keep watching because we'll bring you the answer later.
While a sobering midweek defeat to Burnley cut short AFC Bournemouth and Eddie Howe's fine run of form, the Cherries will go into their matchup with South Coast rival Southampton, knowing they've picked up 10 points from a possible 18. That Howe has managed to turn Bournemouth into an established Premier League club is testament to the Englishman's talents in the week that sees him reach his 40th birthday. He's overseen 90 top-flight matches, winning nearly a third and finishing 16th, then 9th.
Eddie's a fantastic manager. It was a pleasure to play under him, and I think that he brings a lot to Bournemouth. Obviously, to get them promoted throughout all the leagues, it's a fantastic achievement, and to remain in the Premier League, he's done unbelievable.
If the Cherries are to improve upon that 9th place finish this term, they'll need their forwards to start firing. The front line has only found the back of the net 6 times in the club's 14 games so far. Meanwhile, Southampton and Mauricio Pellegrino have enjoyed a mixture of fortunes and will want to bounce back from a heartbreaking late loss at league leaders Manchester City. Having replaced Claude Puel in pre-season, Pellegrino's Saints haven't exactly been a model of consistency since starting the campaign unbeaten in their opening 3 fixtures. But the Argentine has been able to lead his charges to 16 points from 14 games, 1 fewer than at this stage of the season under his French predecessor.
I think they did well last year, and it's always difficult for a new manager to come into a club and stamp his ethos on the people around him, and I'm sure he's doing that as we speak, and I'm sure they'll get better throughout the season.
The outlook could be much more positive for the Saints were it not for the frame of the goal. Along with Liverpool, Pellegrino's men have struck the woodwork a total of 8 times this season, a league high. One element of their game Bournemouth will wish to improve upon is the number of goal-scoring opportunities they seem to afford the opposition. Howe's men have given up 19 shots inside the 6-yard box so far this campaign, second only in that category to Newcastle United. Despite that, the Cherries are on a decent run of defensive form. Prior to Wednesday's loss to Burnley, they'd kept 3 consecutive clean sheets for the first time in the Premier League. They've conceded just 5 goals in their last 8 games. One player that's been key to that defensive resoluteness is goalkeeper Asmir Begovic, a pre-season arrival from Chelsea. The shot-stopper is enjoying a fine season between the sticks at the Vitality Stadium, and that's shown by his numbers. His save percentage of 73 is higher than it was during his time at Portsmouth, Stoke City and Chelsea. And added to that, he's conceding fewer goals per game for the Cherries, with whom he's kept 4 clean sheets in the Premier League so far since usurping the veteran Polish international Artur Boruc.
I think Asmir is a fantastic goalkeeper. He obviously came down from Chelsea, a massive club, and yeah, he's definitely improved the back line, and I think he's made it much more solid. He's a good talker, and yeah, I think his save ratio it speaks for itself.
Begovic will have to be wary of one player in particular in Southampton's attack, Dusan Tadic. Since joining the club at the start of the 2014-15 season, no other player has been involved in more goals for the Saints. He's bagged 16 and racked up 25 assists in that time. Teammate Mario Lemina's also impressed this term, the midfielder returning to the starting 11 for that loss to Manchester City after a spell out through injury, a period in which Southampton didn't win a single game without him. So how will the Saints fare this weekend?
I think it'll be a tough game for both clubs, both desperate for the points, down at the Vitality. I think I'll have to go for a Bournemouth win. I think they'll be right out of the blocks and desperate to beat their South Coast rivals.
A disappointing defeat to Manchester United on Tuesday, but 21 points from 14 games is Watford's best start to a Premier League season. Marco Silva's revolution continues. This weekend, though, they come up against one of their bogey teams. The Hornets have yet to beat Tottenham Hotspur after 8 Premier League attempts. In this competition, that's the most games they've played against any opponent without winning. Maybe summer signing Richarlison is the man to bring an end to that unfortunate statistic. In his last 9 league appearances, the Brazilian's been involved in 7 goals. In fact, since his arrival, he's played a part in a third of the goals scored by Watford this season. Little wonder he's reportedly attracted the attention of other clubs, including this weekend's opponents. Tottenham Hotspur travel to Vicarage Road in sombre mood, having suffered their 4th defeat of the season, as many as they lost during the whole of the last campaign. Among their concerns, Mauricio Pochettino may not be satisfied with the standard of deliveries into the box. Spurs have put in 251 crosses from open play, the highest in the division, but a league-low 13% have been successfully completed. There's trouble at the back too. In their last 3 league games, Tottenham have let in 5 goals in the first half, making matches an uphill struggle. That's as many first-half goals as they conceded in the previous 31 Premier League matches this year. A better start would help them avoid a 4th consecutive league defeat on the road. Over a third of the way through their fixtures, and Brighton and Hove Albion are holding firm in the middle of the table.
Their battling qualities and work ethic on the pitch are demonstrated by their dominance on the ball. Chris Hughton's side have lost possession nearly 2,000 times. It doesn't sound great until you consider that only Manchester City have lost the ball less. Their midweek draw with Crystal Palace, their second stalemate since promotion, means Brighton have suffered just one defeat since losing to Arsenal at the start of October. Underpinned by an enjoyment of home comforts, the Seagulls have settled nicely into Premier League life. Since their defeat to Manchester City in their first home game of the new season, Brighton have played 6 successive matches at the Amex without defeat. This weekend, they're likely to face a re-energised Sadio Mane. Since his debut in August 2016, he's been directly involved in 25 Premier League goals. No Liverpool player has had a hand in more. He rewarded his manager by adding to that tally during the midweek trip to Stoke City, a game that marked his return to the starting lineup. Mohamed Salah came off the bench to enhance the scoreline in their 3-0 win over the Potters, taking his goal tally to 12 in 14 Premier League games. But it could still be a tricky trip to the South Coast for the Reds. They've won just one of their last 4 Premier League away games against newly promoted sides.
Earlier in the show, we asked who scored the most perfect hat-tricks in Premier League history. The answer: former Liverpool forward Robbie Fowler, who hit the target with his head, left and right foot in 3 different Premier League matches.
A midweek win provided a much-needed change in fortune for Leicester City. Riyad Mahrez's goal in their victory over Tottenham Hotspur was the 5th he's been involved in during his last 7 Premier League appearances. It secured Leicester's first victory in 4 games. However, defensively, the Foxes have struggled to deal with balls being played into their box. In fact, no side has shipped more goals from corners than their 6 this season. As for their attack, only Bournemouth have had more English goal scorers in the Premier League this campaign than Leicester's quartet of Jamie Vardy, Harry Maguire, Demarai Gray and Mark Albrighton. Vardy's opener against Spurs was the 4th time the Foxes have scored in the opening 15 minutes of a game. That's a league high this season. Burnley head to the King Power Stadium in fine form, having already picked up 14 points from 7 games on the road this season, a monumental improvement compared to the same stage 12 months ago when they'd registered just a solitary point. Their defensive record during those away games has been impressive. Despite facing a league-high 145 shots, they've conceded a mere 8 goals. That success is partly down to the defensive duo of James Tarkowski and Ben Mee, who've made a joint league-high 24 and 22 blocks, respectively. Overall, only the 2 Manchester teams have conceded fewer than the 11 goals Sean Dyche's men have shipped after 14 games. That's 12 fewer than they'd let in after the same number of matches last season.
Stoke City's poor campaign continues. 13 points after 14 Premier League games is the Potters' worst ever total at this stage of the competition. Only one team's conceded more than their tally of 29. Struggling Swansea City were also beaten midweek, this time by Chelsea. That leaves them 19th, with only goal difference keeping them off the bottom. Part of the growing problem for the Swans has been their inability to take their chances. They've got a 6% shot conversion rate this campaign and hadn't been having many in the first place. The club's 24 shots on target is a league low. This weekend, it's more than likely they'll face Darren Fletcher, who recently made his 105th consecutive Premier League appearance. Across 17 years, the midfielder's been remarkably consistent, winning 70% of his tackles with a passing accuracy of 83%.
I know Darren Fletcher really well from his time in Scotland. We were in the national side together, and he was always keen. He was always had an eye on, what the experienced players were doing in games and how could he learn from them. He was always picking the brains of elders. He's certainly had a fantastic career. When he does eventually retire, which hopefully is not too soon, he'll have a really good CV to look back on. He's a top pro as well, lives his lifestyle in the right way.
In this fixture back in April 2016, the Swans went 2-0 down, but were rescued by a goal from Gylfi Sigurdsson and Alberto Paloschi's deflected strike. Stoke have never been beaten at home by Swansea in the Premier League. That's a run of 6 games. In fact, there's no side the Potters have played more often at home in the competition without losing.
Continuing a busy schedule, match week 15 gets underway on Saturday as Newcastle head to Chelsea for the early kick-off. With the dugout merry-go-round in full swing, there'll be plenty of interest in Everton versus Huddersfield and West Brom against Crystal Palace. On Sunday, Bournemouth face Southampton. League leaders Manchester City play West Ham. But the headline acts this weekend may well be those old managerial adversaries who seem to bring out the best or maybe the worst in each other. Jose Mourinho and Arsene Wenger have been locking horns for well over a decade. There was a 6-0 drubbing at Stamford Bridge in 2014, an infamous touchline spat a season later. And last term, the Arsenal boss gained his first ever league victory over the self-proclaimed special one. It certainly won't be a quiet affair when these two managers meet once again. From Dave Beckett, me, John Champion, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye.